Every building needs a foundation. For your AI management system, that foundation is your AI policy, your governance structure, and your people. Get these right, and every control you build on top of them will hold. Get them wrong, and even the most sophisticated risk assessment framework will collapse under audit pressure. In this episode, we are building the governance foundation of your aims: AI policy, organizational structure, roles and responsibilities, and competence. We are also going through Annex A controls, A.6 and A.7, in practical detail. By the end of this episode, you will have a clear picture of what a governance ready AI organization actually looks like. Let's start with the document that anchors everything else: the AI policy. I have reviewed AI policies from dozens of organizations over the past 2 years, and I can tell you that the majority of them fail at the same basic test. Would this policy actually prevent a governance failure? The answer, in most cases, is no. The problem is that AI policies are often written at the level of aspiration rather than obligation. Phrases like, "we are committed to responsible AI" or "we use AI ethically" tell you nothing about what is actually permitted, what is prohibited, who is accountable, and what happens when things go wrong. A policy under ISO 42001 needs to do more than state values. It needs to create governance obligations. Think of it like an employment contract rather than a mission statement. An employment contract specifies what is required, what is prohibited, and what the consequences of non-compliance are. Your AI policy needs that same specificity. It should name the categories of AI use that are permitted without special review. It should name the categories that require an impact assessment before deployment. And it should clearly state which uses are prohibited entirely. For example, using AI to make irreversible, high-stakes decisions about individuals without any human review. So how do you actually write this policy? Let me walk you through the structure I use with clients. Start with scope. Which AI systems, which organizational units, which processes does this policy apply to? Broad enough to matter, specific enough to enforce. Then state your principles. ISO 42001 does not prescribe specific principles, but most organizations align to fairness, transparency, accountability, and human oversight as a baseline. The key is to define what each principle means in practice for your organization, not just list the words. Next, specify your obligations. This is where the policy gets teeth. What must happen before an AI system is deployed? An impact assessment? A bias test? Senior sign-off? These obligations are what your Annex A controls will operationalize. The policy states that they are required. The procedures explain how they are done. Finally, include your escalation path. When an employee encounters an AI use case that the policy does not clearly address, who do they contact? What is the decision-making process? Ambiguity in escalation is where ungoverned AI use grows. Close that gap in the policy itself. Writing a great AI policy is only half the job. The other half is making sure people know about it and follow it. I have seen organizations with beautifully written AI policies sitting in a SharePoint folder that nobody has opened in 18 months. That is not governance. That is documentation. Communication means making the policy accessible to everyone who interacts with AI systems, not just the AI team. That means intranet pages, onboarding materials, and regular reminders. Clause 7.3 of ISO 42001 requires awareness. Your staff must understand the policy, their role in it, and the consequences of non-compliance. Review is equally important. AI moves fast. A policy written before your organization adopted generative AI tools is probably already outdated. Set a minimum annual review cycle and build in a trigger for earlier review whenever a significant new AI capability is adopted. When you updated your cybersecurity policy after Log4j, that is the same reflex I want you to apply to AI governance. Every material change in your AI landscape should prompt a policy review. Document the review, document the decision, and version control the output. Now let's talk about the people and structure that make your policy real. ISO 42001 Annex A.6.1 requires a formal AI governance structure, not an informal arrangement where someone has AI oversight added to an already full job description, but a deliberate, resourced, documented governance model. What does that look like? At a minimum, you need an AI governance committee, a cross-functional group with representation from legal, compliance, technology, operations, and typically the business units most affected by AI decisions. This committee owns the AIMS at an organizational level. It reviews AI risk reports, approves high-risk AI deployments, and escalates to the board where necessary. At the system level, every AI system in your inventory needs an AI owner, an accountable individual responsible for that system's governance. Not a team, one person. Because diffused accountability is no accountability. The AI owner ensures the system has a current impact assessment, that monitoring is in place, and that incidents are reported and resolved. Once you have your governance structure, you need to make roles specific. And the most effective tool for this is a RACI matrix: responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, mapped across your AI governance activities. Every Annex A control should have a clear RACI entry. Who performs the control? Who is accountable if it fails? Who needs to be consulted? Who needs to be informed of the outcome? Why does this matter so much? Because in an AI incident investigation, the first question is always, who was responsible for this? If the answer is the team or everyone, that means no one. RACI prevents that ambiguity. It also prevents the very real problem of single points of failure, where one person holds all accountability for AI governance and then leaves the organization, taking institutional knowledge with them. One practical tip: review your RACI every time there is an organizational change. Restructures, new hires, departures, all of these create gaps in your accountability structure if you do not keep the matrix current. Governance structures and policies mean nothing if the people inside them do not have the skills to operate them. ISO 42001 Clause 7.2 requires you to determine the competence needed for AI governance roles and ensure that people have it. This starts with a competence framework, a mapping of what skills are needed for each AI governance role. An AI owner needs to understand risk assessment, impact assessment, and the Annex A controls relevant to their system. A data scientist on an AI development team needs to understand bias testing and documentation requirements. A board member overseeing AI governance needs sufficient AI literacy to ask the right questions and recognize a credible answer. Once you have the framework, you need a gap analysis. Where is your organization today versus where it needs to be? And from that gap analysis, a training plan. Not a single annual awareness session for everyone. Role-based, targeted training delivered before people are asked to perform the relevant governance tasks. And you must keep training records. When an auditor asks, how do you know your AI owner is competent to perform an impact assessment? Your answer is the training record, the competence assessment, and the evidence of completed training. Here is something I want you to sit with for a moment. AI governance is not a domain where you can train once and stay current. The regulatory landscape changes every 6 months. New AI capabilities appear that create governance challenges nobody anticipated last year. The Annex A controls in ISO 42001 were designed for AI as it existed in 2023. Generative AI, agentic AI, and multimodal systems are already testing the boundaries of those controls. So your competence program needs to be continuous, not periodic. That means building learning into the governance rhythm, not just annual training. Regular regulatory update briefings. Internal knowledge sharing when an AI incident happens. Encouraging your AI governance team to pursue professional certifications like AIGP, CDPSE, or the ISO 42001 lead implementer qualification. I tell my clients, if your AI governance team is not learning something new about the regulatory landscape every quarter, they are falling behind. The organizations that maintain a genuine learning culture around AI governance are consistently the ones that pass certification audits with the fewest non-conformities. That connection is not coincidental.